Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Life Raft Physical Security Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Value, and my guest today is Jerry Hine, CEO of the International Protection Group. Now, Jerry, last time we chatted, you made a really interesting point about how a lot of bodyguards in the profession today are too focused on the physical, exciting parts of the job, and that doesn't go a long way towards keeping VIPs safe. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, I think we like to differentiate between professional protectors, and we say highly trained professional protectors, versus the amateur bodyguards. And sadly, there's a lot of folks who are doing protection in a manner where they make themselves highly visible. And there are some people that attract those kind of people, almost using Hollywood scenarios, like the bodyguard's hitman, and that everything is armed and fighting. And, if you go to YouTube and say, do a search on paparazzi and bodyguard and fight, you'll see a lot of good, bad examples. The highly trained professional protector does everything to avoid problems, tries to stay in the background, minimizes the need for him to be up front and center, except maybe in a highly publicized event or when you're bringing somebody, say, to a red carpet. But generally, professional protectors are kind of what we call Greymen. They're there, but they're not there. They're there when they need to be there. They blend in. They try to minimize their own existence for the sake of, you don't want to call attention to yourself. And unfortunately, there's a new breed that are being enticed into the industry with the sex and the sexy of living the celebrity's lifestyle and the Hollywood approach. So I think those that are in the industry as professionals, we're saddened to see that, but it's not uncommon. So we do like to advocate that the professional protectors minimize their importance. We're there to support. We're there to mitigate trouble should it happen, but we're not front and center.
Right. So you've probably maybe heard through the grapevine of some of the issues that come with having one of these highly visible protection details. But what are the negative consequences when you're too flashy and with this mentality?
Well, you call a lot of attention to yourself. I recently published an article in Security Management it's called In the Spotlight, about celebrity protection. And because celebrities are in the spotlight, then the protectors are also in the spotlight. And working in that environment, and in today's age, everyone has a cell phone. They see a celebrity, they're live streaming it sometimes. So the protectors end up being very visible. And when you're around notable people, and a lot of executives now become notable people, they almost have celebrity status because of the social media, because of how they live their lifestyle and constantly in the news. But the protectors, we have to try to minimize our need to be seen. Otherwise, it can be counterproductive. If the protectors have a lot of flash or are really standing out, then it calls unnecessary attention. You can actually walk with a celebrity into, say, a private airport and go past many people, and sometimes they don't even notice you if you minimize how you carry yourself. And when I say minimize, you don't have a lot of flash where, unfortunately, the amateur bodyguard, he likes to make sure everybody sees him. They'll kind of push people out of the way. They come in with a big splash, and then people look around and say, oh, who's that? Meaning, who are they protecting? And when you can kind of come in nice and quiet, some people don't even lift up their head. So the problem with the flash and really coming in kind of heavy-handed is that it calls unnecessary attention to yourself.
I like the point that you made about social media. I just saw a post the other day of a popular singer, and there was an incident with a fan, and there was a little bit of a roughing. And in the background, in the comments, everyone's seeing this, everyone's negatively commenting on this post, and it did a lot of damage to the credibility of the celebrity and their fan base.
There's some websites even called Stupid Celebrities, and an incident involving a celebrity with their bodyguard. And again, that unprofessional bodyguard will often get millions of views. So the protectors really reflect on the celebrities themselves. And it's unfortunate. Now, sometimes the celebrities themselves bring a little bit on themselves, the way that they act and all. But for protectors with certain notable celebrities that are out there and kind of very visible, and sometimes they themselves will create problems. Again, the protector has to try to minimize the focus on them because it can reflect very poorly on the celebrity. I mean, how would a celebrity feel if your actions as a protector gets them posted on a website called Stupid Celebrities with millions of views? It obviously is counterproductive for them. And that's why we try to differentiate between professional protectors and professional bodyguards. That word bodyguard sometimes has a negative image because of how it's used. We can't avoid that word bodyguard, and we can't avoid the use of it. I mean, the Secret Service say protect the U.S. president. They're often called the president's bodyguards. They're highly trained, very professional. And so we just have to differentiate between that. In certain environments with certain celebrities, sometimes it can't be helped that there's so much attention on them. And then as protectors, we often protect people from love and hate. So a celebrity has maybe a lot of fans that love the celebrity and want to be around them, want to touch them, want to get a selfie, want to get an autograph, and love the celebrity. But then there are, you have to be looking out for those individuals that have a mental disorder, or they have some hatred towards that celebrity, maybe because of a part they played in a movie, they didn't like it, things like that.
So why do you think everyone entering the profession perhaps doesn't see it that way?
Two things. Many people become protectors maybe based on a relationship with the celebrity. Maybe they're a cousin or a friend and they grew up with them and they're big, they're burly. Now, some celebrities do need big and burly protectors because of the nature of say, who they are, or the culture that they're in may require a big entourage around them to protect them. And part of it is the imagery that Hollywood projects. So some people, they get excited, they want to be a bodyguard. And if they don't get any professional training, then the problem is they're operating on how they think they should be. Maybe that they should snarl at people, they should be rough and tough and kind of be strong, heavy-handed. Those that are professionally trained, and as you know, I own and operate the Executive Protection Institute, which is, we say, one of America's oldest executive protection training programs since 1978. And that's where we emphasize also minimizing your need. And also, we like to use what's called the art of war, which is a fight not fought is a battle won, which is coming from Sun Tzu, the art of war. I know the outcome of every fight I don't get in, which is I'm the winner. So professional protectors, we do everything humanly possible to avoid fighting, to avoid a conflict. We prepare in advance. We do our walkthroughs. We consider everywhere where we are what we might have to do to avoid that problem. Often people who get into protection or the bodyguard trade, they might be martial artists. So where is their value? Their value is on their fighting skills. So then based on that, they want to show their value to their client. They want to show that they're a tough guy, that they can handle themselves. Where the professional protector doesn't want to fight because, even somebody who's a black belt in martial arts gets into a fight and somebody comes up behind him and whacks him on the head with a bottle of champagne or something, he's out. So
no matter how tough you are or how big.
Exactly. And there's been a lot of sad cases that way. Professional protectors, even those that do everything possible not to have to use force, may have to because we don't have full control of the environments we're in and things like that. But we're going to do everything possible not to have to use force, not to have to fight, to get our client in where they need to go safely, to get them out, to minimize those kind of problems. But getting back to your question is, unfortunately, I think people's understanding of what bodyguards do, many think that they have to be big, burly, they have to have fighting skills. And so some people actually hire those type of people when they would be better served hiring professionally trained protectors as opposed to the MMA fighters who like to fight.
Well, and I think you made an interesting point about the movies that people seen, like the Hitman's Bodyguard, and I know there was a BBC series recently, and it's all the exciting action gunfights, and so that naturally, if that's what you think the profession is, you're going to get the type of people that are attracted to that, even if they're not really well suited for the field.
Some of these TV shows, I was trying to keep track of how many people the bodyguard killed in a 30-minute show, and I lost count. And I thought, I hurt somebody's feelings once, but I've never had to kill anybody. Professional protectors can go their whole career, whether you're armed or not, and not even have to even put your hand on your firearm, because when you pre-plan everything and you do everything possible to avoid problems, there are circumstances where you go into a country that has, say, civil unrest or tension. Generally, professional protectors will try to hire a local that would, say, go to deal with the problem while you're protecting the client and getting them to safety. As I mentioned, we don't have control. And in today's age, with all the unrest everywhere you go, you might think, geez, I'm going to Israel, I have to have tighter security there. Well, if you're going to a U.S. city where there's a lot of civil unrest, so we can't always control those environments.
I'd like to watch some of those series with you doing the commentary in the background. I think that would be kind of amusing. Probably a lot of face palms.
It would be boring if there was a movie or a show of how it really is. People would probably fall asleep because we go to such means to not have to deal with problems. So we do our advances where we come to say our client is being dropped off, and we walk the routes again. We think of contingency plans. We prepare along the way. And again, we're preparing not to have to use force, how to facilitate their needs. One thing that I've said, there's a store whose tagline is "An educated consumer is our best customer." And sadly, those consumers of protection, not all of them understand the true value of what we do or understand the difference between the professional service and the amateur service. So I think one thing that we're working on in the industry is to try to educate consumers of the importance of having protectors who make all those preparations, not to be in the spotlight, to be in the background, to minimize difficulty. And again, Hollywood likes to entertain, and the Hitman's Bodyguard would be very boring if he didn't kill anybody or fight people. But people need to understand the difference between the professional bodyguard and the Hollywood version.
Well, that takes me to a couple different parts where I'd like to take the conversation next. So I would imagine then you've talked about where clients don't necessarily have the right idea of who they should really be looking to hire. And so, obviously your philosophy, less flashy, not a lot of things I can see as a client to see that maybe feel a bit more safe. So how do you go about selling these type philosophy to clients, or what kind of objections have you kind of run into in that process?
Well, and very often we'll get a phone call where someone, maybe an agent or a personal assistant of an executive, will say, we need to hire 6 bodyguards. We want them 6 foot tall and big. And so part of it is in say the interview process of taking on an assignment is to find out what the real needs are. Are there known threats? Is someone trying to hurt them? So part of it is educating the end user and explaining the difference. And sometimes we are getting a call because they had a bad experience, because their protectors were not professionally trained. So part of it is to explain the difference between professional protectors and the untrained, unprofessional. A lot of our success and our referrals come from people that had a really good experience and then begin to understand the value of the professional protector versus the amateur. So quite honestly, we interview clients while they interview us. We don't take on every client. Professional protectors will avoid saying, you're best suited to find somebody else. We don't think that you understand our value, or you may want to find somebody else. Just because of their understanding or what they want, they might not be satisfied with the quality of service, because sometimes they want that attention. Certain individuals want 4 bodyguards to surround them everywhere they go, within arm's reach because of the flash. And we do get requests. It's almost like arm candy. Oh, I need 4 bodyguards. I'm going to a party. What I don't know, and I've had some clients use our services because we have to try to understand, do they have a real threat and they're not telling us? It's unbelievable that sometimes people have, say, a specific threat. And then when you say, are there any known problems? They'll say, no, none whatsoever. And then we do our own research and gather our own intelligence to find out. And sometimes we'll find information through open source, intelligence, open source, where we're just Googling and looking and searching using their names. And we find that there are problems. And then sometimes we'll bring it to their attention and they'll say, oh, yeah, there's that. We didn't think it was important for you to know.
Would have been helpful.
Yeah, minor details, we say.
I included right there with the keyword about intelligence. Obviously, a big part of what we do at LifeRaft. What is the role in terms of that threat intelligence plays in the Grayman approach to executive protection?
Oh, it's huge. It's critical in today's age. And I like to jokingly say I started doing protection before Al Gore invented the internet. Now we have this information available, which is also available to possible adversaries. Today's protectors should be protection or intelligence driven, meaning we have to look for and monitor potential threats based on intelligence. Now, we live in the information age, so we're flooded with information. If you do a Google search, within seconds, it says it found 1.2 million bits of information. Well, who can sort through all that? So there's a difference between information and intelligence. So we have to take that information, define it to information that we need to know. And then that should help us in our mission. So today's protector, whether you're a solo protector and one individual with one client, or you're on a team, and there are some, say, multi-billionaires that have 10, 12, 20 analysts who are doing protection intelligence, looking and sorting out, going through what we call POIs, or persons of interest, people that maybe have made a threat. Is it a real threat? Is it a casual remark? Or is there some seriousness? Are they a threat? Will they show up at an event? If you're an individual, you should be gathering intelligence. Thank God today, we have smartphones. Now, a single protector has to be careful. You have to keep your head up. You can't get lost in that smartphone. It can become a dumb phone if you're not careful. But there are times, say, if your principal, your protectee is inside a meeting, that's a good time to be looking for, are there any known threats? And now with a lot of these apps, if somebody spots your principal, they may put it out in an app, a sighting. And now other people know if you have a protectee that is, say, prime targets for paparazzi, then that word goes out. Next thing you know, paparazzi starts showing up, and, now calling a lot of attention that your principal is there. And again, that if there are adversaries or, say, people with mental health issues, stalkers, things like that, they can also collect that information. So it's so important now. Like I said, protection these days should be intelligence driven. Then you can base your protection plans on that information.
I like that point that you made, Jerry, about not just looking for what information is available out there about adversaries, but also what information is out there about your client. Because like you said, the adversaries, they have this information too. It's all open and you're looking out at them, but they're looking back at you. And I think that's sometimes something that I've seen people forget about.
Years ago, I had some celebrity clients, and every Monday I would go down to the supermarket and I would buy every tabloid. And I looked like I was a tabloid junkie, but that was my intelligence source. Now, that information was raw. When you think of tabloids, it's a mixed bag. And it was amazing to me the amount of truthful information that was mixed in with those rags. They call it yellow journalism because there was a lot of misinformation. But it was amazing to me the amount of truthful information mixed in. And you had to sort through that. And it's the same way with intelligence these days. And there are service providers like yourself that are very valuable to an end user to collect and sort through that raw data of finding out what's truthful, it's raw intelligence. And then you have to sort through it the best that you can. And sometimes misinformation can be as hurtful as truthful information. So you have to monitor it. So even a rumor could cause a big uproar. If you're protecting a CEO and then there's a rumor that there may be a hostile takeover and people may lose their jobs, that increases the risk CEO because now somebody may be upset even based on false information. So you have to sort through that information and you have to make sense of it. You're using intelligence, but you have to use it carefully.
You talk about managing customer relationships. You've obviously put together a lot of details over your time and hired lots of people. How do you find people adhere to your philosophy that are going to fit in well on your team and the Grayman approach versus someone who is a little trigger happy and looking to get into a scruffle?
Well, I do try to hire graduates of, say, EPI because I know the quality of the training. Even that, you want to try somebody who's tested. Now, I've given many people entry-level opportunities based on their nature. And I'm more likely to hire somebody I've met and looked at them as a human, their personality, how they carry themselves, how they talk, and then their training. So I don't hire somebody based only on their training. There's dating sites that say, they're looking for a good match. Well, we try to do the same, a good fit, a protector that has a good personality that is best suited for a client. For example, I had a very well-known author who separated from her boyfriend and had needed some protection. She hired one protector who became a little bit attracted towards her. And I told her, I said, you're a very attractive woman. I mean, that is not a problem, but professionals have to, separate themselves. There have been some successes where the protector becomes, say, married to their client. It happens. And I mentioned life happens. But at a certain point, they have to separate personal lives. And so she was concerned and asked me, can you find me somebody good? And I provided her with someone who recently had a baby, was madly in love with his wife. And after a while, she said, Jerry, this guy that you got me is perfect. He's well suited. He wasn't attracted to her. He was in love with his wife, new baby, really served her and she was thrilled. And part of it is that finding that good mix between what the client needs, is suitable. I'm not going to put somebody with a protectee that is not a good fit. And it could be based on their upbringing, their lifestyle, say even if political beliefs. And professional protectors have to be neutral people. We have to separate ourselves from politics. We have to separate ourselves from gender and race. We're there to provide a service. We're there to protect the individual. We have to separate. And now there are some people that say might not be willing to do that. They have such strong beliefs. So if that's the case, I'm not going to put them with somebody that is on the counter side of their beliefs.
It's the oddest sounding matchmaking service I've ever heard of.
Yes, we sometimes laugh about it, but it's a needed service. I have an idea, to create that type of service. And we often, right now, we got a request to fill the needs of somebody to service a ultra high net worth family. And we go through a process of sorting out who would be the best candidate. We believe that we found the right person for one family. They made a list and it was huge, a graduate and this degree or that. And I went through that, but then I got back to them and said, I'm going to provide you 2 or 3 candidates that I think are the best suited. They may or may not have all these qualifications that you're looking for. And in the end, the candidates I provided were the best. They hired a headhunting firm and they couldn't come up with anybody. And then I was told, Jerry, that your 2 candidates in particular were the best. And then now they're deciding between one or the other. I told them that these are going to be the best suited candidates because I've been in this business a long time and have a good sense and good feel for it. Again, sometimes corporate, they come up, HR comes up with all these qualifications. I think you're not going to find that kind of person. It would be a miracle, but we're going to find somebody well suited. And we've had pretty good success with that.
Well, it's like you mentioned, the personality match. It is a people business. Well, Jerry, we're coming up on all the time. I promise to steal from you today. What's the main takeaway that you'd like listeners to remember from our conversation?
Those that need protection is to look for highly trained professional protectors versus the amateur bodyguards. It's not about size. It's not about muscle or might. It's really the best tool that a protector has is what's between his ears, his head, and planning. So look at their professional and do a background check. Not everybody that says that they protected somebody did.
Yeah, I really like that philosophy, Jerry. Really in line with a lot of stuff we talk about at LifeRaft. And do you want to tell listeners about your current projects at IPG and how people could connect with you?
One service that we provide is protection driving, where, say, private families may not feel they need a bodyguard to go with them everywhere they go. But you're most vulnerable when you're in a vehicle. You're getting in and out of a vehicle. You're traveling about. So one service that we provide is protection driving. Our drivers are trained not only in protection, but also driving. They've taken a evasive driving program, which we can measure their ability, how well they drive. People say, well, I have a driver's license. I've been driving for years. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good driver. So we provide drivers that have been thoroughly trained as protection drivers, also in protection. And if they are armed, then they need to make sure that they're trained in that capacity also. And then also, are they properly licensed? And then who's the provider? Are they insured? So our company's licensed, insured. The employees are properly paid, as opposed to, say, be an independent contractor. You want to vet out those people and then make sure that they're a good fit for you.
Jerry, thanks for joining me today.
Rob, it was my pleasure.
Again, that was Jerry Hying, CEO of the International Protection Group. That's a wrap on this week's episode of the LifeRaft Physical Security Podcast. Never miss an episode by subscribing on Apple, Spotify, or wherever else you listen to your podcast. And if you're looking for more insights on building a successful threat intelligence program, check out our site at liferaftinc.com. That's liferaftinc.com. I hope you tune in next time.